True Scary Story, Volume 4, The Shadow Figure by Alien Bunker. The night was dark and still, with an eerie silence hanging in the air. Emma, a young woman in her mid-20s, had just moved into an old Victorian house in a quiet neighborhood. She had always been drawn to the mysterious and had a penchant for horror stories, but she never imagined that she would find herself living in one. It was her second night in the house, and she had barely settled in. Emma had just finished unpacking the last box and collapsed onto her bed exhausted. The clock on the bedside table ticked away, reminding her that it was well past midnight. As Emma began to drift off to sleep, she noticed something peculiar. In the corner of her room, a faint shadow seemed to materialize, elongating and stretching towards her. Her heart raced and she sat up abruptly, rubbing her eyes to ensure she wasn't imagining things. But the shadow remained, a murky figure lurking in the darkness. Fear gripped Emma's chest as she watched the shadow's movement. It appeared almost sentient, as if it had a will of its own. A cold shiver ran down her spine, and she felt a growing sense of dread. Unable to tear her gaze away, she observed the shadowy figure inching closer, its form becoming more defined. She mustered her courage and reached for the lamp on her nightstand, desperately flicking the switch. But to her horror, the light refused to respond, leaving her at the mercy of the encroaching darkness. Panic welled up within her as the shadow figure drew nearer, its presence suffocating. Emma's mind raced, contemplating her options. She had to escape, to flee from this haunting apparition. She swung her legs off the bed, ready to make a mad dash for the door. However, as she rose to her feet, a sudden gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing the candles she had carefully arranged earlier. The room plunged into pitch-black darkness. The momentary blackout filled Emma's mind with terror. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she could barely catch her breath. Then, as the room gradually regained its feeble illumination, Emma's eyes widened in horror. The shadow figure was no longer confined to the corner. It had moved closer, its silhouette stretching menacingly across the room. Emma's instincts screamed at her to run, but her legs felt like lead. She was frozen in place, unable to escape the clutches of this malevolent entity. The shadow figure reached out with elongated, twisted limbs, its movements unnatural and unsettling. It seemed to feed on her fear, growing stronger with every passing moment. As the shadow figure closed and Emma's vision blurred, her body paralyzed by a force beyond comprehension, dread consumed her entirely, drowning out any shred of hope. She could feel its icy touch inching closer, preparing to envelop her in darkness. Time seemed to stand still as Emma stared into the abyss of the shadow figure's presence. Her mind raced with fear, desperately seeking a way to break free from its grasp. She knew she couldn't surrender to the darkness, for doing so would seal her fate. Summoning the last vestiges of her courage, Emma fought against the paralyzing grip that held her captive. With a surge of determination, she let out a piercing scream, hoping to startle the shadow figure and disrupt its malevolent intentions. The sound reverberated through the room, piercing the veil of silence. To her surprise, the shadow figure recoiled, momentarily disoriented by her display of defiance. It retreated a few steps, its smoky form flickering uncertainly. Emma seized this opportunity, mustering every ounce of strength she could find. With trembling legs, she lunged toward the door, propelled by sheer adrenaline. The figure reacted swiftly, lashing out with elongated tendrils that almost reached her, but she managed to evade its grasp. Narrowly escaping its clutches, Emma stumbled into the hallway, gasping for breath. The air outside her room felt refreshingly normal, devoid of the sinister presence that had plagued her. She realized she couldn't stay in that house any longer. Whatever malevolent force dwelled within those walls, she needed to escape its clutches before it consumed her entirely. As Emma hurriedly made her way downstairs, she couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see the shadow figure lurking behind her, but the hallway remained empty, the silence unbroken. Finally reaching the front door, Emma flung it open. Releasing herself from the house's grip, she stumbled onto the porch, breathing in the cool night air, and gazed back at the house, her heart still pounding. The darkness within seemed to taunt her, a mere whisper away from reclaiming its prey. Realizing she couldn't leave things unfinished, Emma resolved to seek answers and confront the haunting that had plagued her. She vowed to research the house's history, seeking any clues about the shadow figure and its origin. Armed with knowledge, she would return, ready to banish the entity and reclaim her home. Days turned into weeks as Emma delved into archives, discovering a hauntingly tragic tale buried within the house's past. It seemed that a century ago, a family had lived there, a family whose lives were consumed by darkness and despair. The patriarch, driven by madness, had dabbled in forbidden rituals, inviting an unspeakable entity into their lives. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, Emma reached out to paranormal experts, determined to unravel the mystery and find a way to rid the house of its haunting presence. Together they formulated a plan, a risky endeavor that required ancient rituals, talismans, and an unwavering belief in the power of the human spirit. The night of reckoning arrived, with Emma and the experts returning to the Victorian house, armed with their newfound knowledge. They entered with cautious steps, the weight of their collective determination palpable in the air. The shadows seemed to watch, almost marking their efforts as they performed the intricate rituals. Emma felt a surge of energy radiating through her veins. She recited incantations, her voice resonating with power and conviction. The house trembled, a tempest of emotions churning within its walls. Then, as if responding to their plea, the shadow figure materialized once again, its presence stronger than ever. But this time Emma stood firm, facing it head-on. She unleashed a surge of light, banishing the darkness that had plagued her. The entity writhed, its form dissipating like smoke in the wind. The air cleared and the house fell silent once more. Emma and her allies shared a collective sigh of relief. The weight of the ordeal finally lifted from their shoulders. The haunting had come to an end, and Emma had found her closure. But as the dust settled, she couldn't help but wonder if the shadow figure was truly gone for good. The echoes of its presence lingered, a reminder of the darkness she had overcome. Emma vowed to remain vigilant, forever watchful for any signs of its return. As for the house, it stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, no longer a place of shadows and despair. It transformed into a beacon of hope, a reminder that, even in the face of unspeakable darkness, there is always a flicker of light waiting to guide the way.